officially. Rotarians and guests, this is the Rotary Club of Toronto, and I am Prince Kumar, the club president. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our Rotary meeting for today. Next, we have the recognition of the traditional lands, the invocation, and national anthem and our Rotary toast. Traditional lands. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples who have walked and cared for this land for 15,000 years. They include the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Treaty Peoples of the Mississauga of the Credit. In this world, which sometimes can be cruel and unmerciful, we know that worldwide harmony and accord is still a ways away. So, on this happy day of Rotary Fellowship, we ask you as Rotarians and guests to inspire all, especially the antagonists in places torn by intolerance or violence, so that they may learn to be compassionate, understanding, and peaceful. Let us give thanks for the companionship of our friendship in Rotary. And now, for a national anthem by a Grammy Award winner and environmentalist, Ricky Cage, who has been honored by the House of Commons of Canada for outstanding musical and humanitarian achievement. If you would like, please stand for the playing of O Canada, followed by our toast, and remain standing till you're asked to be seated, please. Rotarians and guests, to Rotary and our fellowship. Please be seated. It is now my pleasure to introduce our head table. Today, on our head table, we have Binoy Lakou, Rotarian since 2010, classification real estate residential, real estate broker for iPro Realty Limited, brokerage, a club board liaison director for Charitable Ask Committee. And Binoy was one of the first Rotarians that I met. I think he was in the year that I started at Camp Scugog, a place that I highly recommend. And I think we've formed a forever bond as we have with so many other Rotarians. Thank you, Binoy, for letting me be part of your life. Dawn Bell, our Rotarian since 1980. 41 years, Dawn. Wow. Classification, retired. He's a club past president and co-chair of our events committee. Our events committee is going strong, and shortly you're going to hear about some wonderful events that they're planning today. Thank you, Dawn, for not only serving as a past president, but continuing on the baton in ensuring that our club is thriving in fellowship, fundraising, and philanthropy. Don Brooks, Rotarian since 2005, classification retired, member, Foundation's Research and Appeals Committee, of course, our How We Hobby segment speaker for today. Now, Don was, I remember Don from my days in Youth and Children's Service Committee, and also as a liaison director to Rotaract. In both the cases, Don has connected so well to the youth, not just the Rotaract, but also the causes that YCS was serving. So your coming of age story, Don, to me, I think that was just a stepping stone into a wealth and a world of communication and relationships you've built. Thank you, Don. Bill Murari, Rotarian since 1999. Classification, club management. General manager for the National Club. Club past president, co-chair of member engagement, and sponsor to not just one, but two of our new members today. And I have to give a special thanks to Bill, because every single time when we're at the National Club, not only Bill, but all his staff are there to raise the bar to a completely different level. Thank you so much, Bill, for all that you do in Rotary and through service otherwise. Our new members, Mona Shirari, who's going to be introduced shortly, as well as Israel Karen, also another new member. Really looking forward to hearing more about both of you. John Fortney, Rotarian since 1999, classification real estate residential, Harvey Cal's Real Estate Limited, club past president, our immediate past president, host to our guest speaker. And John, you've been such a wealth of an advisor, I know, to me over the years, and you continue to be. I rely on your advice. I know sometimes it's late at night, and thank you for taking the calls and messages during that time as well. And I have to say, last year was a really, really tough year, and I think you were really the apt president to lead our club because you led the club with heart. Thank you so much for doing that. Dr. Denis Crawford, author and freelance writer, our guest speaker who will be introduced shortly. Rotarians and guests, our head table. Next up, today, I see we have several guests joining in, so welcome to Rotary. And I see that we also have the Bassett family joining in today. So thank you so much for gracing our lunch. And we're so glad that you're able to join us for this particular talk. To our visiting Rotarians, thank you for choosing our club for your makeup. We hope you enjoy your meeting. For all our guests, whether you're coming in locally in Toronto or internationally, I know some are coming in from states and from California today. Welcome to our meeting, and please feel free to ask us to contact the office and find out how you may be able to make a difference in joining us. The interesting thing about the virtual world is you can help no matter where you are. So I'm so glad you're there with us today. Rotarians, please welcome our visitors in the tradition of our great club. Now, our members will know this, but for our guests and visiting Rotarians, please do remember that if your video camera is on, these meetings are being recorded. A lot of them are also available on our social media, including YouTube. So if your camera is on, we will not be able to edit you out at a later point. So please do present a professional image. Be aware of your surroundings and your background, as again, we won't be able to edit you out at a later point. So today, for our impact reporting segment, we thought we would do something special. Every week, we've been talking about our charities that we have helped, our organizations that we have helped, and they've been coming in and presenting. And that is going to continue on weeks ahead. But today also marks our third release of our Rotary Minute videos. And this particular one was all about the impact that Rotary is making out there in the community, in people's hearts and friendships, and with our members. So we thought, for our impact report, why not present our Rotary Minute video today? Now, before we present that, I just want to remind you that the Rotary Minute videos work if our members, guests, visiting Rotarians all like and share it on YouTube, on various different social media networks. So go on to our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, our YouTube. It's all over. And share it with your colleagues. Let them know, with your friends, with your family. Let them know what Rotary is all about. So let's enjoy this particular video.
The Rotary Club of Toronto is one of the largest Rotary clubs in Canada and one of the oldest clubs in the world. You may have heard of us before or seen our logo around, but do you really know who we are and what we do? The Rotary Club of Toronto provides millions of dollars in funding each year to deserving organizations doing great work. We volunteer around town. We host events such as annual Christmas parties for senior citizens and physically challenged children. We work together with the public library to host workshops for low-income residents, or with the school boards to host a youth leadership expo. We spend a weekend at Camp Scugog every year fixing up the camp's facilities. We send Rotarians around the world on sweat equity trips to places like Malawi, Sri Lanka, El Salvador. The club hosts weekly Friday lunch meetings with fascinating speakers on a wide variety of topics. And of course, these weekly meetings, like all Rotary events, provide opportunities to network with the club's diverse membership, people coming from different walks of life working in a wide swath of industries and professions. We're also about fun. We've got a ton of different social and fellowship events, meals and or drinks, attending local festivals, events, or shows. We do so much for so many. Come see what we can do for you or how you can join us in making a difference in your community.
Wow, what an impact our club makes. It is just amazing. I've seen this video a few times now, and every time I look at it, I find a new little impact segment, whether it was helping with our Christmas parties, whether it was Camp Scugog, or so many different charities and organizations that we're supporting, so many different projects that we're supporting. Well, I also want to thank again the Marketing and Communications Committee for putting that out, and of course the executive producer of these videos, Christina McMillan, for putting these videos out. This is our third one, so remember folks to like and share it. Now the video also touches on something very interesting. Because of the pandemic, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do our kids' Christmas parties, but our events committee has been planning, and even some of our fellowship and fundraising events, we've had to look at new and unique ways of doing them. So our events committee has been added again. And my second ask to all of you, and that includes guests. Yes, you can get involved, including our international guests. This is such a wonderful way of getting involved and making a difference. So what is it, you ask? Well, it's time for some fun and fellowship. Your events committee is planning our first fellowship fundraiser combined event for this Rotary year. Now it will take place, mark your calendars, the week of November 22nd. And make sure you mark the location. Guess where it's going to take place? It's going to take place at your home. Yes, you heard it right. It's going to take place at your home because we're looking for hosts. The plan is to raise money for holiday hampers of food that will be given out to less fortunate groups in the downtown community. For examples, members of the Progress Place, the Indigenous community, some Camp Scugog families will raise money by having holiday hamper parties in your homes. We're asking today for you to volunteer to be a host of these parties. And what are these parties, you ask? Well, you decide. These could be cocktail parties, dinner parties, potluck suppers, whatever you like. Bring in a few friends, bring in a few family members, bring in a few colleagues, invite them over, or perhaps even some Rotarians, perhaps even your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors if you don't know them already. Invite 8 to 10 people, or more if you like, of course, following COVID protocols. Ask each party guest to donate $40. Now, $40 is enough to buy 2 holiday hampers of food. You will be supporting 2 families with just $40. So ask each and every one of your guests to bring that in. The money can be collected online, on our Rotary website or through contacting our Rotary office. Following the parties, the collected money will be donated to the Daily Bread Food Bank, who will provide hampers, which will be packed by our club volunteers in early December, and instructions on how to donate will be sent to you early next week. In the meantime, remember, this is your chance to support this amazing cause while you're having some fun and fellowship. Interested? I know I am. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm signing up to host a party. And if you want to sign up, just call or email Marcy Berg. And for folks who don't know Marcy, she's a wonderful Rotarian, and she's going to be waiting for your calls. Her email is mberg@mdgroup.ca. All right, so remember, we do need many hosts and hostesses, as many as possible. Contact Marcy, have some fun, and let's get a plethora of these holiday hampers out there. Thank you, Events Committee, for putting this together. Now, for one of my most favorite presidential official roles, today, we not only have one, but we have two new members to introduce. We have Mona Sharari and Israel Karen. And I would like to pass on the agenda to past President Bill Murari to do the introductions. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Prince. And, being a past president, this was always one of my favorite roles, too. And I'm sure every president before and after said exactly the same thing. Just before I move on to introducing Mona and Israel, as I think it was mentioned earlier by Prince, we have a lot of potential new members in the hopper, and that we are looking for Rotarians to help be ambassadors, to reach out to these people and help convert them and let them know why they should be members of our great club. So please contact myself or Donna. I'll just reiterate that again. So without further ado, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to act as sponsors for our newest new members. And I hope to get to meet you in person. I see up on the screen there, both of you, but I want to see you in person soon for sure. Let's start with Mona. So Mona was born and grew up in Amman, Jordan. She moved to Toronto, Canada at age 13. Since then, she also lived in Halifax, Nairobi, Kenya, and London, UK. She currently lives in Toronto and works as an urban planner at Bowesfields, Inc. Her work focuses on providing urban planning consulting services for real estate development projects in Ontario. In her previous work experience, she also worked on development projects in Jordan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. She graduated from Dalhousie University in Urban Design and Planning and received her Master's of Science in Infrastructure, Planning, Appraisal and Development from University College London, UCL. Mona currently delivers guest lectures to master's students at UCL as well. Her hobbies include swimming, running, playing squash, collecting maps, traveling, and exploring new cultures. Mona is particularly keen on open water swimming. In her younger years, she participated in the FINA World Juniors Open Water Championship in 2012. And in that same year, guess what? She swam across the English Channel. Wow. I can't swim to one end of the pool, let alone across the English Channel. Since then, she's also swum across the Strait of Gibraltar and broke the Canadian record. I'm pleased to introduce Mona as one of our newest members of the Rotary Club of Toronto. And Mona, I'd like to pass over to you to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Bill. I just want to start off by saying thank you all for welcoming me into your club. I was actually first introduced to the Rotary Club by my great aunt, who is still a member in Amman, Jordan. And she always spoke very fondly of her memories, the people she got to meet, and her engagement with local community and interactions. And she encouraged me to join. So just to end off, I'm so excited to be joining. And as I said, would be very excited to meet you all, hopefully in person and soon. And that's it. So I'll pass it back to you, Bill.
Thank you, Mona, and again, welcome to our club. So the fact that we have not one, but two new members today, that's wonderful. And we keep this momentum going. We're going to come out of this pandemic in great shape as a club. So let's continue on. So our next new member is Israel Caron Abera, who was born in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, and grew up in Texas as well as Nuevo Leon. He lived in Nuevo Leon and Texas as well as New York. He currently is residing in Toronto, and thank God, because we're going to welcome him to our great club. He practices quality control at an international restoration company. Israel holds a degree in international business and is currently going through a master's degree in information technologies. He also attended Marine Military Academy in Texas, where he's a member of the cycling team. Boy, we have athletes joining our club. Wonderful. And also lived and learned at a rabbinical seminary in Brooklyn, New York. He is married to his young wife, Tova Sarah, and has 3 wonderful children, Avraham Simon, and pardon me if I messed their names up, Tazala Tazipa, and Menachem Mendel. He enjoys scuba diving, hiking, great food, drink. You'll have to come over to the National Club. We have all that here. Art, and most of all, spending time with his children. He's interested in science, technology, education, public relations. He is a member of the Metropolitan Council of Nouveau Leon since a very young age. And Israel is also an affiliated member of the conservative Jewish community in Mexico, USA, and Canada. His paternal grandfather, David Caron Cordova, maternal grandfather, Daniel Abera Martinez, and his father were all members of Rotary clubs. And they have been members for 3 generations, so it is a family tradition. So you come by our club in good stead. His grandfather, Daniel, was president of the Red Cross in Mexico, and his father, Gerardo Caron Villarreal, is a PhD at the University of Washington and director of the economies in the state of Nuevo Leon. His mother, Miriam Abera Carrera, was a director of intergovernment relations, also in the state of Nuevo Leon. He feels very proud to join the Rotary Club of Toronto and looks forward to engaging with our members and obviously meeting our members over the years to come and well beyond that. So please join me in welcoming Israel to our great club. And Israel, if you'd like to say a few words, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muari, for the introduction. I'm very happy to join the club. I feel very proud. I tell my children I'm joining the club, so they are very happy. Hopefully, I'll be meeting you in person very soon. I'll pass it back to you, Mr. Muari.
Well, thank you, and thank you for continuing the family legacy in Rotary. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming our newest members, Mona and Israel, to our great club. Thank you very much, and back to you, Prince.
Thank you, Bill. And again, I'm so thrilled to have both Mona and Israel join us, and really looking forward to serving with you guys together. So now it is time for our guest speaker. Now, before we get into our guest speaker introduction, a reminder to all our virtual attendees that if you'd like, you can email your questions to question@rotarytoronto.com for a Q&A session, and we'll facilitate that at the end. So it is my pleasure to pass the agenda over to our host of the speaker, past president, John Fortney. John, over to you.
Thank you, Prince. Welcome, everybody. I'd say about a year, probably more than a year ago, my friend John posted on Facebook that there was a book written about his dad, John Bassett, and his involvement in professional sports. And I thought, now that would be a great topic for a Rotary speaker. I love history, and I really love Toronto history. I know how much Torontonians love their sports teams and the temples that they play in. Just think of all the stories about Maple Leaf Gardens, and it's actually a very rich history sport in Toronto. So I reached out to John, and he put me in touch with the writer, Dr. Denis Crawford, and Denis has agreed to speak to us today. We're very fortunate to have John. I think Diane is online with us. John's sisters, Heidi, Vicky, and Carling, and their mom, Sue, and I believe various friends and some relatives. So I want to welcome everyone to our meeting, and I hope they enjoy it. And I do appreciate the input from the Bassets in putting this together. They speak so highly of Denis and the incredible work that he went to research this book. In one of my emails last week, I did mention to them that it would have been great if we had been able to be all in person today like we were pre-pandemic. But then I also thought, because we're virtual and we have so many people that are joining us from all over the place, and it's matter of fact, Heidi is joining us all the way from Bali. It's after midnight over there. So I want to thank everyone who did join us from far. And it's amazing, with all the drama and the problems we've had in the last 18 months, we really need to recognize some of the opportunities that pivoting for COVID has created for us. And I know for our club, we have very amazingly grasped onto these opportunities and made the best of them. And it's really made us a stronger club. That's our silver lining. I only met Mr. Bassett once. It was at a cotillion party that he and his wife Susan had hosted in their beautiful backyard. And John, I don't know if you remember, but a whole bunch of us afterwards, we headed down to the Copa and we had a great night. It was, I think Vicky was there too. It was a lot of fun. Our speaker today, Dr. Denis Crawford, he's a training coordinator at Youngstown State University and a freelance writer. His research interests are sports, entrepreneurship, and alternate professional sports leagues. Besides his recent book on John Bassett, he has written a book on the influential NFL owner Hugh Culverhouse and scholarly articles on the World Football League's Papergate scandal and the rhetoric of losing. You can read the rest of Dr. Crawford's impressive bio in The Voice. I want to thank Denis and all the other writers and their publishers for continuing to write books and record our history, our stories. In this digital age and era of instant gratification, I sometimes fear the potential loss of books. Over the years at Rotary, we've had the pleasure of so many authors presenting their books. We are offering to sign them for us, and I used to buy 2 of them. I always got one signed for my dad. Got a great little library going just from books from Rotary. Their stories recounted many great Canadians. Some of them now controversial, like that 2-volume book on Sir John A. Macdonald. Some very beloved, like Lloyd Robertson. And some remarkable Canadians, like the book I Cannot Hate, by the Palestinian doctor who lost both his wife and daughter in war, but still he writes of peace. Then there's my favorite, I Have a Home in Glory Land. I couldn't put it down. Of course, I read it by the pool with a drink beside me in Barbados. It is a true story of a Black couple who escaped slavery and sought refuge in Canada in the 1830s. And they were the first people protected by Canada and not extradited because their fate, if they were, slavery, was illegal here. We still follow that policy today for refugees almost 200 years later. When I returned to Toronto after reading that book, I actually went to the necropolis in Cabbagetown and visited the grave, right next to their friend and father of Confederation, George Brown. Dr. Crawford, thank you again for your story. We look forward to hearing from you today and learn more about John Bassett and his contribution to sport in Toronto. Hopefully, we'll also have the opportunity to purchase your book. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Denis Crawford.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and a special thank you to the Bassett family for attending today's event. They were all key contributors to this book that I was fortunate enough to write. At this time, I would like to have my slideshow brought up so that I can get into the presentation. I'm both honored and humbled to be here today. Next slide, please. Now, because I'm a little bit of a sarcastic person, I want to thank the Bassetts in my own special way by putting childhood photos of them up here for all of the world to see. I love you guys dearly, and this book is as much yours as it was mine. Next slide, please. Toronto is a wonderful city to visit. It's vibrant, cosmopolitan, beautiful. It is also a hotbed for sports all year round. It is home to almost every professional and amateur sport that Western man has invented to entertain themselves. But it has not always been that way. And Johnny F. Bassett is one of the key figures in shaping the sports scene that so many of us take for granted today. Next slide, please. John Bassett was in his late 20s and well on his way to a very lucrative career in media when an incessant urge to become a sports entrepreneur took hold of him in the 1960s. With a very, very good job in his family's media company, Baton Broadcasting, the Toronto Telegram, Bassett instead chose to return to his sporting roots. A one-time Davis Cup tennis player, a successful hockey player in college, a successful football player in college, Bassett decided to diversify Toronto's sports landscape in 1967 when he convinced his father, John White Hughes Bassett, to establish an IndyCar race at Mosport Park, the Telegram Trophy. The initial race was won by legendary driver Bobby Unser, pictured here to the right, but it did not generate a very large crowd. A second race was run in 1968, but also did not have a large crowd. Undaunted, Bassett decided to hold a road race. He was inspired by the Trois-Rivières Grand Prix in Quebec, and he announced that the Telegram Trophy race would relocate to the lakeshore in 1969. And he designed a course which was to include a mile of Lakeshore Boulevard and even incorporate Exhibition Stadium as pit row. Unfortunately, Bassett's race course became a political issue, as politicians in the Parkdale area called him a deranged egotist bent on destruction, while more progressive politicians in the city rallied on his behalf. The debates over the race course never ended, however, and it scared away the IndyCar Association and forced the cancellation of the race. IndyCar racing would abandon Toronto for many years. And this is the first of 3 times in which Bassett is going to be denied a chance to broaden Toronto's sports calendar. And I realized in writing that kind of made it sound biblical that Bassett would be denied 3 times, but we will see these 2 other times in which he will be denied. Next slide, please. However, this is also a pattern of Johnny Bassett being just too far ahead of his time, because IndyCar racing does eventually come to the Lakeshore in 1986, and it is run on almost the exact same course that Bassett laid out in 1968. Fittingly, his name became synonymous with this latter race, as they recognized the effort he had put into establishing ties to the sport. The Indy Molson Festival Foundation awarded the Johnny F. Bassett Award to recognize Canadian individuals who make significant contributions to the development and growth of motor racing in Canada. Out of sports for the time being, Bassett produced a production of Hair in downtown Toronto and also several well-received films. But when the Ottawa Nationals of the World Hockey Association came up for sale, he did something completely audacious. He sold out his shares in the media company and resigned his executive position and threw everything he had into his new hockey team, the Toronto Toros. Next slide, please. The Toros debuted in 1973, and Bassett needed to put a positive spin on his product because popular opinion was that he was going to lose his shirt. Journalists estimated the Toros would lose $500,000 annually under the most ideal circumstances. If only they lost that little, but we will get to that. Bassett truly believed that Toronto could support two hockey teams, and he also believed that the Maple Leafs were not serving the city well at this time. Harold Ballard's parsimony and unethical business practices, and Harold Ballard is a man who served jail time for embezzling from the Maple Leafs and then was hired to run the Maple Leafs. One day, some of you will have to explain this to me. This unethical business practice irked Bassett and other Leaf fans. The Maple Leafs charged more for tickets than any team in the NHL, a tradition which I believe is still going on today, but they slashed payroll and cut ties with popular players. So Bassett decided to market his team as the anti-Leafs, an inexpensive night out in which fans would be encouraged to dress casually, yell constantly, and enjoy high-scoring games. The motto of the team was very simple: good hockey, good fun. Now, arena problems would plague the Toros for many years. At first, they played at the undersized varsity arena, but later rented Maple Leaf Gardens for the extraordinary sum of $10,000 per game. As a matter of fact, Bassett's landlord was Harold Ballard. But despite these financial situations, Johnny Bassett put out a winning and exciting product for his city. Next slide, please. Bassett succeeded in getting his Toros in the public eye without the same media coverage given to the Leafs. And one of the reasons was he attracted star players. Some of the stars of the Toros included Maple Leaf legend Frank Mahovlich, Summit Series hero Paul Henderson, and Czech Olympian great Vaclav Nedomansky. The Toros were constantly league leaders in offense and made the playoffs twice, averaging around 10,000 fans per game. But because of their arena struggles, they consistently lost money. Bassett tried to get the city to help him to build a venue, but there was very little political will to build a venue for a team in an upstart sports league such as the WHA, especially in a city where the Maple Leafs held such sway. Bassett reluctantly moved the team to Birmingham in 1976. Next slide, please. Now, although the Toros were around for only 3 years, they were eminently successful. And although they've been gone now for almost half a century, you can still see the impact that they had on the city. A popular team being forced to leave due to lack of an arena, no doubt was in the back of many people's minds when it came time to build the Rogers Center and Scotiabank Arena. More importantly, Bassett proved that the Maple Leafs were not bulletproof. Now, please don't throw anything at me because you will only damage your computers today. But I do need to ask. The Leafs have still not won a Stanley Cup since 1967. So have they been equaled or supplanted just a little bit by the Toronto Blue Jays in the hearts and minds of the sports fans of Toronto, or by the Toronto Raptors during their incredible run to an NBA title? Bassett's legacy is that he showed the fans of this city that they could be excited about something other than Maple Leaf hockey, and that in fact Toronto sports fans deserve more than what the Leafs offer at times. And that is not such a bad legacy to have. Next slide, please. While the Toros and Bassett were going into their first season, he apparently decided that going toe-to-toe with the Maple Leafs in Toronto was not a big enough challenge. He also decided to take on the National Football League. And his reward for going into a battle with one of the largest monopolies in the world was to have to also fight the Canadian government. Bassett announced the formation of the Toronto Northmen in the brand new World Football League in 1974. Next slide, please. And in doing so, He staged arguably the greatest signing coup in the history of professional football when he personally convinced Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield to leave the defending champion Miami Dolphins to come and play for the Toronto Northmen. The signings made Bassett and Toronto the center of professional football for a time. Howard Cosell interviewed Bassett and the three former Dolphins on Wide World of Sports, and this photo of the signing hit sports pages across the country. By the way, Bassett entered into some really cunning negotiating tactics when he signed this $3 million deal. Every time he asked the players what they wanted and they told him, his response was, okay. Luxury cars, okay. Luxury apartments, okay. $1 million a piece, okay. Business 101, correct? But what he got for his money was publicity and excitement. Toronto sports fans quickly purchased tickets and Northmen merchandise. Sadly, at this time, the Trudeau administration was very concerned with the impact the Northmen would have on the Canadian Football League specifically and Canadian culture more generally. The CFL depended on the Toronto Argonauts to make enough money to share with the Western nonprofit teams. So they complained to the government. An administration that is concerned with creeping Americanization then dispatched Health and Welfare Minister Marc Lalonde to craft legislation. And he proposes what was known as the Canadian Football Act, an act that would actually ban American-style football. And not content to merely brand this style of football possibly illegal, Lalonde attacked Bassett in the press, portraying him as unpatriotic and anti-Canadian and out for a quick profit at the expense of Canadianism. Bassett defended himself, stating that Lalonde's reference to him as an entrepreneur out for a fast buck was, I quote, libel. In view of what I have put into sports over the years, I played tennis for my country, I represented Canada in the Pan Am Games, I played on Canada's cricket team, my family sponsored indoor track and field meets, and we've had interests in the Argonauts, the Maple Leafs, and the Toros. No one is going to malign my contribution to Canadianism in and outside of sports. Now, the legislation that Lalonde proposed never made it out of debates, but as with Lakeshore Racing a few years earlier, the national political debate put Bassett in a logistical bind. He has been selling tickets and he's been garnering advertising sponsorships, and Toronto is legitimately excited to have these three-star football players on their way. But again, the uncertainty forces him to have to move. He relocates the team to Memphis, Tennessee, where even though it did not win a championship, it was arguably the best franchise in the World Football League. And Bassett was not subtle in assigning blame to Lalonde for Toronto losing out the chance to see such a super team. If an election is called, Bassett said, I hope the people of Toronto will remember that Lalonde denied them football of a superior quality. Next slide, please. Again, Bassett was just too far ahead of his time. I know the Argonauts are a popular team, but I also know that Toronto has a passion for the National Football League. They've supported regular season games by the Buffalo Bills, and given the contretemps in upstate New York right now, where Buffalo is trying to negotiate a new lease agreement with the Bills, it is possible Toronto could be hosting Bills regular games again one day. Next slide, please. Now, Garrison Keillor has a great line about funerals. They say such nice things about people at their funerals that it makes me mad to realize I'm going to miss mine by just a few days. Johnny Bassett passed away in May of 1986 of brain cancer in his beloved Toronto. And the local newspapers were filled with pages of tributes about the sportsman. And many of the articles were tinged with regret that his sporting efforts in Toronto were so far ahead of their time, and he wasn't given the chance to enjoy modern sports in Toronto. In the years after his passing, I think a greater appreciation for his accomplishments are due, because all institutions require someone to be on the bleeding edge rather than the leading edge in order to get them to advance. And Johnny Bassett definitely lived on that bleeding edge. He spent millions of dollars on the Northmen, on Lakeshore, and on the Toros. He helped to diversify Toronto's sports calendar. He weakened the monopoly of the Maple Leafs, and he showed teams like the Blue Jays and the Raptors that you could indeed succeed with other sports. And I want to be honest, very talented people brought the Raptors to being. Very talented people brought the Blue Jays into life. Very talented people brought auto racing back to the Lakeshore. And I do not wish to diminish their contributions, but I do think it is fitting and proper that we all occasionally remember Johnny F. Bassett, the man who dared to dream about a greater sporting Toronto and did all he could financially and emotionally to blaze a trail for others to follow. Next slide, please. Now, I would be remiss and a very bad author if I did not point out the many ways that this book could be purchased. I want to thank you again for your time. You honor me by this invitation, and you humbled me by helping the Bassetts to attend. And now I pass it on to Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. What an incredible story that you've just shared with us. And by the way, just for our members, the link to Dr. Crawford's book is actually available on our website now. So if you'd like, you can always go through it there. I'm just looking at a couple of one or two questions that have come in, and if anyone else needs to send them, remember it's question@Rotary Toronto. One in particular is, what you've shared an incredible story of John Bassett in a multifaceted sports career as well as an entrepreneurship career. What got you connected with this story, and what was the impetus behind your search of writing this book?
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. I was born and raised in the Tampa Bay area, and I came of age at a time when Mr. Bassett established a team in Tampa called the Tampa Bay Bandits of the United States Football League, and it was a very creatively run team. Mr. Bassett was Canadian. I've heard him referred to as Canada's P.T. Barnum. He was just a tremendous showman. The Bandits had wonderful uniforms. Burt Reynolds was a part owner. Lonnie Anderson made appearances. They had a very cool horse logo, and so there was actually a horse running through the stadium during the games, and they employed a wide open form of football that just captured the imagination of a 12-year-old. I don't know if this is fair for me to say, as I never had the chance to meet him, but I think Mr. Bassett was the oldest 12-year-old. And so it just seems like every team he had was designed for somebody who was 12 or 13 at the time. So that's where I became interested. And as I got older and older, and I realized nobody was writing a story about the Bandits, I felt I would write a book about the Bandits, but then realized that was just the tip of the iceberg. Mr. Bassett was just too fascinating a character not to write a biography of.
Well, thank you for taking your inquisitive aspect and really going deep into it and writing this book and sharing it with us today. Another question I have from the audience is, you talked about the law of the American football in Canada. To what degree does it still hold water today? What aspects of it are even present today?
Well, that is a good question. I know that the fear, and I don't know that it's a rational fear. I do know the fear about Canadian culture and American culture having such close proximity to each other will always be an issue. But the bill itself, just being debated, is, I think, as far as it ever went, because the Canadian Football League lost a lot of their standing when they attempted to expand into the United States. They had Canadian Football League teams in Baltimore, Shreveport, and I think Sacramento. So I don't know that you could try to expand your sport into America and then say Americans can't try to expand their sport into Canada. And also the Bills had some pretty good success for about, I think, 2 or 3 years. They played at least one home game a season at the Rogers Center. So I don't know that that will ever come back again.
Okay. And one more final question is around, John Bassett had an extensive career in again, various different sports enterprises. If you could give us a little bit of a comparator between hockey and football in terms of his experiences with dealing with the two different organizations.
Well, I think he was passionate about both because he had played both. I think hockey was near and dear to him. He actually was such a good goalie that the Toronto Maple Leafs offered him a contract, I believe, when he was 15 or 16. But his father went and tore it up and told Conn Smythe to leave his son alone. But I think his true talents for showmanship and his true talent for promotion was better tied to football, or at least that's my humble opinion, because what he did with the Southmen and then with the Tampa Bay Bandits was a lot more fascinating. I mean, granted, he had Evel Knievel out on the ice against the Toros, and he gave away diamonds while he was in Birmingham, but you give Bassett a week to promote a game, whereas hockey's like every 3 or 4 nights there's another game. In football, you have that 1 week in between, and sometimes 2 or 3 weeks between home games. You give a man like Bassett 2 or 3 weeks to promote something, and he's going to have mortgage burnings, or he's going to give away $1 million during a game. And if I don't want to go on. I would be remiss if I pointed him out as just being some kind of promoter. All 3 of his teams were very successful in the field of play. The Northmen / Southmen had the best record in the World Football League. The Toros made the playoffs, and then when they moved to Birmingham, they continued to make the playoffs. The Bandits were arguably the best run franchise in the United States Football League. So he also knew how to spot talent and let them do their jobs.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Crawford. And something you said about John Bassett really hit a chord is that he dared to dream, and he dared to dream for a better Toronto. And that's actually, interestingly, not unlike the Rotarians you're seeing in this meeting, where we're daring to dream for a better Toronto as well, just in a different realm. So thank you so much again for spending this time with us. A donation has been made in your honor to pack H2O water backpack, which answers the need for a clean, easy to carry means of transporting and storing household water. The use of a removable liner, which can be sanitized in the sun, helps to reduce the incidence of waterborne illnesses as well. The burden of water transport is huge for women and children in developing countries. The average person needs 8 to 15 liters of water per day. A family of 6 needs up to 90 liters daily. Women in water-stressed regions walk an average of 5.5 kilometers each day to meet basic water needs. This donation is made in partnership with the Rotary Club of Toronto's International Service Committee. Thank you, Dr. Crawford.
Thank you.
So, just a final reminder to all our Rotarians, Rotaractors, and guests that you do need to have your 2-dose certificate on file when we're coming back into some of our hybrid meetings. And of course, feel free to invite guests as we do go back to some hybrid meetings. However, again, they must be registered with the office and have an Ontario 2-dose certificate. And one last reminder, on our meeting, or sorry, our holiday hamper party. Remember to call Marcy Berg. I think this is going to be fantastic. Week of November 22nd. We're looking for you to do individual parties at your homes so we can collectively celebrate and help in this noble cause. Next week, we have Toronto's Fire Chief, Matt Pegg, joining us, and we're back at the National Club. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I think the weather is still not too bad, not too shabby. Actually, this week, I think we've become really, really lucky and enjoyed some wonderful days. So while we can, go out there, get some sunshine, get a little bit of warmth, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.